I'm Jenna Miscavige. I was born and raised in Scientology. I left when I was 21 years old and wrote a book about it. My uncle, David Miscavige, is the leader of Scientology, and this is my YouTube channel. Hey you guys, I'm out of town for a few days, so I'm taking a little break on talking about becoming a mom because I need to be at home to finish that series because, to be honest, I want to show you all the cute quilts and things that I made for my daughter. But I was having a conversation with a friend today, and I thought it would be something that's really interesting to talk about. And another thing that made me want to talk about this subject is the fact that I was talking about my birth with my son, which was very, very difficult. And many people were like, why didn't you sue? Why didn't you go after them? You could have done this. And the truth is that I felt like that should be the case at the time, but the people around me were gaslighting me and making me feel like I was making a big deal out of nothing. And it is actually something that is connected with growing up in the cult. Now, I'm not someone who wants to say that every time I do something wrong, it's because everyone else is gaslighting me. In fact, I err so much to the other side that I never believe that anybody is gaslighting me, and I blame everything on myself. But the situation that I was in when I was first coming out of Scientology is that I was surrounded by people who were active Scientologists or who were just recently ex-Scientologists, and frankly, who had reason for me to be discounting my story because it made them look bad. So just as an example, when I first came out of Scientology and I started speaking out about it, I was talking about how us as kids at the Scientology school that we went to were required to do 40 hours a week of hard labor. And my ex-husband's mother, who was an active Scientologist at the time, my mother-in-law, she would say to me, well, I went to a farm one summer and worked there, and so it's the same thing. Or she would say, I would have my kids pick up sticks, and so it's the same thing. She was constantly discounting my story. And there is a vast difference between having your kids pick up sticks once a week while you mow the lawn or going to work at a farm one summer than for the entirety of your childhood from the age of 6 years old doing heavy labor 40 hours a week and being deprived of an education and not growing up in a home with your parents. But I was constantly questioning myself because she would say things like this. Or when I would try to say, whether it was to the media or to speak about my story, even on my book, when I would say, when I was being interrogated by Scientology, I was in a room and I was not allowed to leave. And she would say to me, well, at the beginning of every interrogation, they ask you if there's any reason not to start the session. And so if you didn't say anything at that time, that's on you. Or my in-laws would say that you agreed to have a session, and so you knew that you wouldn't be allowed to leave the session once it started. And so you were giving tacit consent. And they were talking about me as somebody who was a 12-year-old or even younger, who wasn't in the same state as my parents, who had no one to advocate for me. But this was the type of thing that I was always being fed. Or from my own parents, I was being told we may not have been the best parents, but we were the best parents in all of the Sea Org. But that really wasn't true. My mom was gone almost the entire time I was in the Sea Org. There were plenty of kids in the Sea Org, Scientology's most dedicated group, whose parents were there to see them every weekend. And so there were many who weren't, but there were many who were. Or just another instance, my aunt would say, oh, well, my husband said that he went to this boarding school that you were brought up at, and you were wearing a dress and you were all happy. And so, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you're just thinking of it as being bad. When in reality, I wore a uniform every single day. If there was one day out of the entire year that I was allowed to wear regular clothes, it was on my birthday. A birthday that I did not celebrate with my parents. I celebrated with the other kids. And by celebration, I mean being brought a cake at dinner time. Or I would be told by people in my family that the boarding school that we grew up in really wasn't that bad of a place. It was better than the alternative. At least we didn't have drugs and gangs and things like that. Or when I would communicate to certain people that I was having trouble getting along with my own parents because of the disconnect we had when I was a child and never having grown up in a home with them, they would say, well, you're lucky you get to see your parents at all because we can't. So what I would always tell myself is that if I was having issues with these people or if I was having trouble in these relationships, how could it be everyone else and not me? And in order to remain a self-aware person and to not be a piece of shit in life, I was like, I need to always look at myself, see what I'm doing, question myself. And to be honest, I became this person who had no confidence and was constantly putting others' beliefs and feelings above my own. And I think there became a point where this was no longer working for me. I was becoming more and more unhappy. I remember I was on a trip in Mexico and I was listening to the Mark Maron podcast, or Mark Manson. I always get those two names mixed up, but I'm talking about the one who wrote the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, the younger of the two. And he was basically saying in this one episode that if you're the type of person who will let one asshole into your life who walks all over you, you are the type of person who will let multiple people into your life who do that. Now, I'm not even trying to say that all these people are assholes, but what I am trying to say is that all of those people were in Scientology, and all of those people are incentivized to make excuses for their actions and make less of my story being there. And when I realized that all of these people that I was having issues with, or that were making me feel like there was something wrong with me for thinking a certain way, it was the beginning of a slow gaining of confidence that has been only getting better, that has been increasing over the last few years, very slowly, albeit, because I still try to question myself constantly, to the point where it stops me from just speaking about the things that I believe. But it has made me question my own opinion constantly. It has made me feel like I'm too unimportant to say the things that I believe, when the truth is that I really wanted to be talking about certain things for a long time. And my opinion is valid and it is important. And I am a good enough person where I know that I don't go out of my way to just trash people. And this constant questioning of myself and putting my own self down and overthinking everything has actually been crippling to me as a person. And so I just wanted to take a moment today and share that with you, is that if you are the type of person who will have one person who is an asshole and who will walk all over you, or who is incentivized to make less of your story, because in some ways they are the perpetrator of those things that happen to you, such as bringing you into Scientology, bringing you into a certain group, bringing you into an abusive situation, before you beat yourself up and constantly question yourself and doubt yourself, remind yourself that if you are the type of person who will have that type of person in your life, you have a pattern in the way that you think that will allow you to have multiple people like that in your life. I hope this was understandable. This was just a quick one, but I wanted to put it out there because it was something that was really important to me, and it is something that leads into many of the things I want to be talking about in the near future. All right, you guys, thank you for always being here and listening to me, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you again soon. Bye.